it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we have a fun video and I just want to show you around what we can do with 3 ink colors. So, of course, I'm going to have to bring in some other bits and pieces. But what we end up creating here are 4 or so of my favorite cards. I think these are just the most simple, beautiful ideas, and these are things that I tend to forget. So we are going to start off sweet and simple here. In general, I'm using Squeezed Lemonade for my yellow, Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink for my blue, and I have some Spun Sugar for my pink. Now, I chose these because these are similar to the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, which means whichever order they're going to go in, it means that they will mix well. They shouldn't create any mud anywhere on the page. It's kind of just a foolproof recipe. So I'm taking a piece of normal cardstock here. This is not watercolor cardstock. I have put my non-stick mat down just to put my inks down, and so I've squished them onto there. Now these are very light colors and I did that on purpose. Also, you certainly do not have to use water reactive inks. You could just use normal watercolor paints, you could water down acrylic paints, you could use anything that you have on hand that you're able to end up turning into a liquid or a paint, and that might be all sorts of different things. But for the ease of this video, and because this is what I have handy, I'm going to be using the Distress Oxide inks today. So I've got kind of a pattern here, and there's a reason that I've got this kind of pattern off to the side. Now all I'm doing is dabbing down water, I have water on my mat as well as the ink, and then here I'm coming in with a wet clean brush, and this is just going to soften the edges, pick up some of the ink essentially, so it blends a little bit more into the background. Now this shape may seem a little bit weird, but there is a reason to the madness, and that is because I have this. Now this is actually a die, but I wanted to make this into a stamp in a previous video. So this is the Leafy Dies 1 set from Pink and Main, but I ended up die cutting this out of some fun foam. I've popped it onto an acrylic block with some double-sided tape, and this becomes a stamp for as much use as I want it to be. So we can turn all of our dies into perfectly good stamps, and this is going to stamp brilliantly with some VersaFine ONYX black ink. I'm going to give it a minute to transfer all the way down, make sure I get pressure because it's actually quite a big stamp all over. Then just when I was going through my sentiments, I really like this stamp set. This is the Garden Blooms stamp set by Hickey, but I really love that these delicate sentiments here. They're sort of, I don't know, a little bit scripty and a little bit sweet. So I really like that. Now the one thing I am going to add, this is a very simple card, but there are several things that we're going to do from here to really make this stand out, because at the moment a little bit plain and things look a little bit not all brought together in my opinion. So I am using some Lunar paste. This is the Lunar paste called Slippery When Wet. I think this is the perfect warm gold color. I've just put a little bit of water with this, and then I'm going to use it as nice little gold splashes all over the place, just to lighten and brighten this little card up. As I said, there are a few little things that we need to do. Now, as I said earlier, I'm going to create, I think, 4 cards in this video, but these kinds of cards, I feel like I could endlessly do these kinds of cards. So if you want any more tips and tricks around doing these sort of, I call them simple but sweet. So these cards don't take me too long, and I think I really, really love the outcome of all 4 of these. This first one in particular is going to be relatively simple, but as I said, a few details that we need to do that are going to really bring these to the next level. So I am going to mat this onto a very thin black border, so it has a black piece of cardstock that creates a really thin mat around the edge, and I think this is just going to bring everything together with the gorgeous little bit of thinking of you stamping. The black stamp from the leaf image, everything is brought together on a white card base. The card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I think I cut the black mat to be 3 1/4 by 4.5 inches. So it gives a really nice thick border around it, and this one is going to be simple but sweet. So the first one is done, and then we're going to move on to the second fun technique that I have for you today. So this is so simple. We are sticking with the same 3 colors, and all I'm doing is a little bit of ink swiping with your ink pads. Now, as I said, I've chosen these 3 colors because these go together like magic, and no one is going to create mud no matter which order I go in. So I am not aiming for full coverage here. I'm just aiming for that swiped look. Now, there's actually pretty harsh edges in between, and what I tend to do is come in with a finger and just gently go down, and you will find that these blend a little bit nicer. You can leave the harsh edges if that's what you like, but this is just what I tend to do. And I love doing this so much. It's so fast, it's so quick, it's so easy, and it looks good. So I made a few more. Now, I just let these dry off to the side because obviously you want to let these dry before you stamp on them preferably. You can either dry them with your heat gun or just let them dry by themselves. They don't take too long. I'm going to bring back in that stamp set, the Garden Blooms stamp set, because I actually really love the image in this one. Now, I also love, there are 4 kind of scripty sentiments in this one, and I think that's probably the 2 reasons why I like this one most. I love the big focal image, but I also find the sentiments useful, so that's really, really important in a stamp set for me. I'm going to be using some VersaFine ONYX black ink, the same one that we used the first time round. Just popping a scrap piece of paper because I'm popping this right on the edge where most of that color is. I'm going to press down for a minute. It's a pretty big stamp, and with this ink you're going to get, it's a really nice crisp, clean, dark black stamping ink. You're going to get a gorgeous crisp image. Now I'm moving on to the second one because I did really love this technique. So this is the Gardenia stamp set from the Woodware craft collection. If you've watched my channel, you know that I love these Woodware stamps. They are great photopolymer quality stamped images. They are large. They are a really good price point, which I also really, really love. Just in case you're wondering, I have not been sent anything by this company. I've never been in contact with this company. I just buy them because I like them. I appreciate that they make them a good price point and they are good value. They have lots of different ranges, lots of different styles, and I particularly lean towards this kind if you've seen the ones that I have used in the past as well. Now, I have stamped this one out just because I couldn't resist. I'm adding the same little thinking of you stamp, and then I also am going to have a wishing you a wonderful day. This is from the first stamp set that we used. I stamp it out a couple of times because knowing me, I will accidentally ruin one if I just stamp it out one time, so it's best for me to stamp it a couple of times. Then I just cut it out with some long bladed scissors. Now again, I'm going to follow that really simple recipe of I'm going to cut these down quite a lot and then I'm going to add a black matte to these ones. If you wanted to, you could add a coloured matte if you wanted to brighten things up a little bit, but just because I have that little bit of black stamping in there, I'm going to continue it, and even though one of these is a thinking of you card, the black obviously goes really nicely, I still think the black creates a really nice frame for the wishing you a wonderful day. And this one I feel like you could use for birthdays, you could just use it for a general celebration, and then you can write your message on the inside and personalize it as needed. So I love adding these black mattes. I think this is one of the parts where the card just comes together. I'm using some liquid glue. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside these little glue bottles. And then again, these are all today. Every one of them is going onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. I didn't want to cut these ones down quite as small, so I think that the black matte was cut to 4 by 5 1/4. So it just leaves a nice little border around the outside, but not too thick, not quite as thick as the first one. Now for the sentiment I'm going to pop on here, I did pop it on a little bit of foam tape. I've got a couple of angled edges, and then this one is going to sit nicely across the bottom there. Again, these cards are super simple. They didn't take me much time at all. I didn't do any heat embossing or anything like that. I really just swiped the ink, stamped the images, and then matted them onto the layers. So pretty quick and simple. Right, we're moving on to the next one already again. I am again sticking with the Garden Bloom stamp set, that gorgeous image. I really love this. I'm going to use this in a couple of different corners here. I think even though this is a gorgeous large stamp, you can definitely just use pieces of this and you wouldn't even know it was kind of, the rest of it was all there as well. Now, one of my favorite go-to techniques at the moment, since I've discovered these tiny little brushes for ink coloring, which means I do not have to do any masking. Previously, I probably would have stamped the image on masking paper and then cut it out so that I could color in the images with some finger daubers or something like that. I have discovered these small sized brushes, recently ordered them. They're not, I'm sure they're not a new invention, but they're recently new in my craft room. And this means that I can do some coloring with these inks and just add color exactly where they need to go. So it is a little bit longer. Coloring always takes me a little bit longer, but it's certainly very speedy in the scheme of coloring. I'm just adding a little bit of ink, nothing too crazy here, but for the sentiment I'm going to need to make sure that I leave room, and I am going to actually add this on some vellum, because otherwise I would need to have my sentiment covering some of the floral image, and I also didn't really want to do that with a white piece of paper. So if I use some vellum, it means that it's going to be partially see-through as well. This gorgeous big sentiment comes from the Simon Says Stamp Holiday Greens stamp set. Now, if you are the person that sent me these gorgeous pegs, I don't know if I should say your name on here or not, because I'm not sure if that's what you want, but I will let you know that I use these and I appreciate them. Thank you so very much. It's something that I often forget to do is, you know, when you're kind of holding your thing, and I get burnt little fingers when I am heat embossing, but thank you very much for the little reminder and the kind, generous bits and pieces that you sent me. So thank you, thank you. Now I've got the sentiment that goes straight through the middle here, and this way I'm able to pop it on top of some of those images without making the writing hard to read, but also I don't lose my image completely. So straight through the middle, then again going to mat this onto a black piece of cardstock. So this is me when I am being lazy / time efficient. When I don't want to measure things, I will just pop this and I sort of line it up with two of the sides of the black cardstock, and then I just take my long bladed scissors and go down the other edges. And you could use your trimmer as well, that's for sure, but this is just me not wanting to measure things. So I have my little black matte layer there, and I think that looks really nice. Of course, to all of these, you could add gems, you could add things to dress them up a little bit. These are just the basic ideas using these 3 ink colors in general. I had that tiny little bit there that I missed, and I just needed to get them, so I got them. But anyhow, I have created these 4 cards for you today. I think all of these look really nice. I also think that you could almost add these into a set and use these as a gift set for the holiday season. But I hope that you have enjoyed these cards today. Let me know if any of these are your style, the really sort of quick and simple, sweet but simple, I like to say. Of course, there will be links to any products used in the description box down below, as well as a link to the Buy Me a Coffee in case you would like to support my channel. Otherwise, thank you so very much. I appreciate you all, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.